Hello and welcome to the Center of Clinical Excellence webinars. Today we're talking about unhelpful thinking patterns that can come about from trauma experiences. And before we get started, let me just sort of talk a little bit about myself. My name is Jan McNeil. I am the lead clinical counselor, psychotherapist. I work with veterans and first responders, and I support them with their mental and physical well-being. So I have been in the field for over 25 years, and I've worked in a variety of capacities, but I've always specialized in trauma and addictions. And I've worked with veterans and first responders for the last 12 years. And so my role here at the center is I will see clients one-to-one, so individually. I also help to produce and facilitate the education sessions and series such as this, as well as the brain fog program, ADHD adult management program, as well as the PTSD program. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Unhelpful thinking. Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about how does stress impact our thinking? How does having cognitive awareness impact this? What are some common beliefs that develop? And what are some common unhelpful thinking patterns that develop from these high stress situations? How can we shift patterns? And then how do we regulate in order to be able to think more clearly, to have those alternate thoughts? Okay, so let's get started. So it's really important to understand that in high stress environments, right, such as emergency or first responders, your brain is trained, it's tuned in to react fast and make decisions under pressure. So that training is really critical, obviously, but it can also lead to mental habits that, while useful in crisis, are not actually helpful in our day-to-day life. And so we all develop mental shortcuts. This is not just, specific to veterans and first responders, okay? They help us to get through tough situations, but some of these can turn against us over time and create unnecessary stress or conflict, okay? So why do we really even need to know what our thought patterns are? Well, recognizing our thought patterns actually helps us to understand them and then manage the thoughts, which can then help us change our feelings, our emotions, and our behaviors. And by becoming aware of our thought patterns, we end up being able to learn to self-regulate, to understand that we're going to unhelpful places because our brain is being triggered. We're in a negative state. So how can we bring ourselves back into more helpful thinking? Okay. So it can help to support effective decision making. It helps with our judgment. It helps with problem solving, and it helps definitely with communication and our relationships. So by doing all that, we have an enhanced quality of life. So when we think about how do we develop these, so when we are experiencing things and there's intense experience, okay, extremes experiences where we need to have perfectionism or military training, we have this fear of vulnerability and we feel at risk all the time, we're going to go either side, okay? We're not going to have some middle ground here. What we're going to be doing is going to the extremes, okay? And this is all about our survival strategy. So what are some of the common themes that we see in terms of our beliefs? So we'll have beliefs around trust and hypervigilance. We'll have beliefs around safety and belonging. And we're also going to have themes around control and responsibility. Okay. So what about trust and hypervigilance? Well, oftentimes we'll have these thoughts, well, I can't trust anybody, right? If I let my guard down, something bad will happen. I can't trust anyone, not even my colleagues or partners. I always have to be ready, and people will let me down when I need them most. So these reactions really, or these thoughts really reflect, okay, adaptations that we've experienced in sort of combat zones, or, when we're going into being a first responder, and potentially, or perhaps one person or another colleague hasn't had your back. Okay, or they've had your back, but not in the way that you wanted them to. So you felt some sort of betrayal. Okay. And so your brain focuses on that one or two times that this individual or one individual hasn't had your back and you felt sense of betrayal. And what it does is that it makes an extreme thought around this, an extreme belief. It forgets about all the times that you've gone into situations where people have always had your back and you've all worked as a team. It negates a lot of those, okay? And it focuses on the one that causes the most stress and upset. And so it's important to understand where these came from and to recognize that one or two situations does not create the whole story, okay? Safety and belonging. So the world is dangerous. I'm not safe at home. I don't fit here anymore. Every loud noise is a threat. No one at home understands what I've been through. Danger is always imminent, or there's no such thing as a normal day. So it's difficult for the transition from being on hyper alert environment, okay, to then going to home life. So that difference is really difficult on the nervous system because it just carries that hyper alertness into home where it's not always helpful. Okay. And so when you're at home, right, you don't need to have that intense hyper awareness and hyper alertness. Okay. Parents will obviously have a little degree of it, but I'm talking the extremes, right? So control and responsibility. I should be able to control things. It's my job to fix everything. If I'm not in control, something will go wrong. I can't let myself rest. I should be strong for everybody else. Okay. So this is again, right? So in your world of military and first responder, if things don't go as planned, bad things can happen. Okay. However, that's not necessarily true in home life. Okay. Oftentimes mistakes happen and we learn from them. Okay. And yeah, things go wrong. You know, your car breaks down or your kid breaks something, right? So one of the things to understand is that 100% control of your whole environment is not possible in the same way that it is in the military and first responders to a point, right? Um, it's not the same in home life and in civilian life, okay? But what happens is that we take that sense of need for control into our home life where we have a partner who doesn't believe the same thing we do, or we have children that don't see the way we see things. Okay. So it's important for us to remember that these beliefs, okay, do not equal facts. All right. So these beliefs that we've developed from our experiences do not equal fact. Okay. So other areas where we can develop some challenges and unhealthy thinking are some thinking traps. So here we have a couple bunnies. One's thinking, yeah, man, I got the big one. The other one's thinking, oh, that's kind of sucks. But lo and behold, we see down below, this bunny has a tiny carrot. This bunny's getting the big one. So the thinking trap is to recognize that actually what we see, we may be mistaken. Okay. So what are some common thinking traps that we have? So in terms of all or none thinking, now these thinking traps are pretty much across the board. All right. Regular population have these as well. What I'm doing is taking these thinking traps and I'm applying it to veteran and first responder sort of points of view. So the all or none thinking here comes, I'm either strong or I'm broken. If I can't be 100%, I'm failing. Either I save everyone or I'm a failure. So this can create really unrealistic standards in self-criticism. And at home, in regular life, these are not helpful. So, for example, if you had a child come home and get 98% on an exam, and you're thinking, if you don't get 100%, you're a failure, you say to them, well, what about the other 2%? Okay. So you don't recognize that 98% is probably pretty amazing. Okay. And when they graduate from whatever program they're in or high school, no one's going to look back and say, what did you get for your marks? Right? So that all or none thinking is not helpful in this world. Okay? And either I'm strong or I'm broken, the all or none thinking. No, you're strong and you can have broken parts, but sometimes those broken parts actually make you stronger. Okay? And when we think this way, we're only going to criticize self. Overgeneralization. Messed up once, I'm always going to fail. No one can be trusted. People always let me down. So again, here's applying one negative event to all future situations. And this reinforces isolation and distress. Because maybe there are people out there that you can trust. Okay. And they're really good in certain situations, but other situations, no, you can't trust them. So one example is, let's say you trust someone to always be there on time. Okay. But on one or two occasions, because of whatever happens, they're not able to be there. Well, you don't overgeneralize that to saying no one, this person can never be trusted to get there on time. Right. And so it's really important to not go into those overgeneralizations because you can really exclude people, right? And that's where the isolation comes in, right? Okay, labeling. I'm a failure, I'm weak, I'm just damaged goods. So assigning these global and fixed labels based on an experience or trauma experience reinforces low self-worth and helplessness. So let's look at this as if you were raising a child, okay? And you had a child come in and say, I'm damaged goods, I'm a failure, right? So it's important for the kids to understand that mistakes are actually opportunities to learn. Okay, in the real world, where if you make a mistake, no one is going to get harmed or hurt. Okay, so this is where we need to separate first responder world or military world from the other world. Okay, because if people make a mistake, they're not a failure. They actually sometimes can become better. And if they keep on trying, what happens is they develop resilience. So if they try something and they fail and they give up, that's not teaching them resilience and that you can actually conquer things, right? And oftentimes making mistakes is actually the way to learn the lesson really strongly. And so they don't go back and make the other mistakes. Okay. Catastrophizing. If I go to that appointment, I'll lose it, right? I'll get angry. Or if I let myself feel, I'm going to fall apart, right? So expecting the worst case scenario to happen, often tied to fear of losing control or being re-traumatized, okay? Emotional reasoning, I feel numb. I must be cold and heartless. I feel unsafe, so I must actually be in danger. So believing that feelings reflects facts or present day truths is not helpful, okay? And it often happens when our nervous system is in that survival mode, okay? So when we are revving on the inside and we feel unsafe, it's hard for our body to realize and our brain think, okay, we're not in a threatening situation, right? But the body is stuck in that kind of hyper aroused. And so it honestly thinks that it's going to be threatened everywhere it goes. And so then it thinks, okay, I really must be in danger. So instead of being able to tell the brain this is a false alarm, we are not in physical or emotional danger. It's okay to settle, right? Because the body is in survival mode, they think everywhere is unsafe. Should and shouldn't statements. I should have done more. Shouldn't feel like this. I'm supposed to be tough. So imposing harsh internal rules rooted in our military first responder standards creates shame and blocks self-compassion. Okay. So these harsh internal rules in the military and first responder are there to keep everybody safe. All right. But when it comes to outside of that, these are actually not helpful. Okay. And when we do these should statements, we're shoulding all over ourselves, and this is not helpful for anyone. Okay. Jumping to conclusions. So, have you ever caught yourself assuming you know what somebody else is thinking or predicting the worst before it happens? Okay. So, mind reading is assuming you know what the other person is thinking. They didn't say hi today. All right, they must think I'm weak for taking some stress leave. Chief hasn't emailed me back. He's probably pissed at me, right? My spouse looked annoyed. I know they're fed up with me. Fortune telling. When you're returning to work, there's no point trying to go back. They'll never trust me again. They'll see me as weak, right? Seeking support. All right, if I open up in this group, it'll backfire. People will see me differently. So we're not leaving any room for any alternative, all right, options. Person didn't say hi. They might have been in their own world. Maybe they were having a crappy day, right? Spouse looked annoyed. Could be for 1,000 other reasons. Okay, may not be upset with you, could be upset with the kids or work or something, right? You just never know what's going on. Okay, so how do we change this? Okay, we're wanting to learn about self-regulation and some skills around how to do this and to understand how the brain works so that we can interrupt and change these patterns. Okay, so when we become aware of them, then we can change them. So you trained yourself and your brain to protect others. Okay, now you have the strength to retrain your body and mind to live in more peaceful things. The warrior mindset actually means knowing when to fight and when to heal. Okay, so how do we shift all this? How do we shift these thinking patterns? Well, first of all, we have to name it. All right, it's always the phrase is to name it to tame it. So we have to acknowledge it and then start to reframe these thoughts, okay, with respect. So this thought helped me survive in the field, but is it serving me now? Is this thought based on past trauma, or is it based on my present experiences? Would I even say these things to a colleague, a fellow member, another veteran, or a retiree? So once we've had that awareness, often what we'll need to do is we need to regulate our nervous system. So Lindsay did a really fantastic presentation on chronic stress and your nervous system. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I would highly encourage you to go back and watch it. And I'm going to give you the real simplified version here. So we basically have a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. Green zone is when our parasympathetic nervous system is in the calm state. We're in our rest and digest. We can think clearly. Our reactions fit the situation. All right, we're open and curious. All right, and we can process things and healthy problem solving. This is what we call the social engagement. We're engaging and we're connecting with people, and basically we're calmer. Okay. Then we can go into what we call the fight or flight. And this is when our sympathetic system, nervous system kicks on. All right, that fight, that flight, that anger, okay, that ready to run. And this is where we get defensive, right? And judgmental. And what happens is that our brain goes offline. All right, we can't think clearly because we're starting to be in survival mode and we're paying attention to the danger, the threat that's coming at us. Okay? And we just can't think. So we're quicker to anger, we're quicker to rage, right? We're judgmental, all those kind of things. We have this obsessive cyclical cognitive processing. We're going over and over things in our brain, right? We have a hard time turning off. And then the next zone, which is the red zone, is when our parasympathetic nervous system goes onto a different branch and we basically freeze or collapse. This is where we can't think about anything. All right, we have no thought process. We go numb. All right, we kind of check out. So then how do we get back into the green zone, right? So first things first is belly breathing. I'm sure everybody's heard about this, but really it's important to breathe into our belly. When we breathe into our chest, what happens is that it actually triggers the fight flight response, okay? The sympathetic nervous system. So what we want to do is we want to breathe down into the belly, all right? And so for some people, what's really helpful, if you can't find a way of breathing into the belly when you're sitting up, lie down flat. When you breathe in, your belly should be going up, okay? You stick your belly out. When you breathe out, the belly should be flattening. So when you're sitting up and you breathe in, your belly should be sticking out, right? And so sometimes it's helpful just to stick the belly out first and then breathe in, all right? And then breathe out. And you can see my chest doesn't move. What are some other strategies for breathing? 4 square breathing. All right. And this helps to bring you back into the present moment, right? So breathe in for 4, usually through your nose, hold for 4, breathe out for 4 through your mouth, and hold for 4. Some people have called it tactical breathing. Some people call it sniper breathing. We just call it 4 square breathing or box breathing. And what this does is it slows the heart rate down, activates the nervous system, and re-regulates the nervous system and activates the vagus nerve. Another strategy is a long exhale. This is where we're going to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So we breathe in for 4 and we breathe out for 8. We breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 8. Other strategies, you may have heard this, you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8. The whole key here is that you have to breathe out longer than you breathe in. That triggers the relaxation response in your brain. Okay. Other strategy. So you might have heard the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What this is it's actually speaking to your limbic system, your amygdala and your hypothalamus, right? And it's speaking and we're basically hitting it at that area to be able to tell it, hey, bud, false alarm. So when we get into this survival response, it's triggered, we actually go into what we call an orienting response. That orienting, our eyes open up, okay? They dilate and they don't look smoothly, they don't scan, they do a staccatic, okay? What they're doing is they're looking for threat. They're looking for that saber-toothed tiger. So perfect example, you're running late for something or the kids have spilled something and you're trying to rush out the door. You can't find your phone and you can't find your keys and your spouse, your partner, or your kids come up and say, you're holding your phone in your hands and the keys are by the front door where they always are. And because you're in a hyper-aroused state, your brain's not actually looking for the phone or the keys. It's looking for threat. Okay, it's doing a threat assessment. So it can't find the phone or the keys. So if we look around and name things that we see in our environment, it speaks to that area in the brain that's gone on to that alert and it starts to settle it. But when we look around, we don't go, oh, there's a wall. Gosh, it's dirty. I need to paint it. No, we just say, there's a wall, right? There's a computer screen, lamp, phone, whatever it is. We just name it. Okay. And then what also happens when you, as you heard from Lindsay and her sharing around the nervous system, what happens, our middle ear actually, instead of it being tight, it opens up. All right. So you'll notice this on dogs or cats' ears. They perk up and they open to try and listen for threat. They're listening for that snap of twigs in the wood, okay, to signal danger. So if we listen to things in our environment, our brain goes, oh, those aren't threatening, and it starts to settle. Okay. Same thing with our pores. So you'll often see the hair on the back of the dogs or the cats stand up. What's happening is their pores are opening up. Same thing happens for us. Okay. When we sense danger, our pores open up. So what we want to do is we want to feel around in our environment. Okay, it's a table. We want to, is it soft? Is it smooth? Is it hard? Is it rough? Is it cold? Is it warm? So just really feeling different things in your environment, your clothes or whatever it is, right? And then you will also, on dogs or cats, you'll see their nostrils flare. So this is so that we can smell, right? Any threat. So if we can think about smelling something that's soothing or calming, so maybe vanilla, think about smelling peppermint or lavender or chocolate cookies baking. So we think about the smell that will help calm us. Again, what we're doing is settling the nervous system. So what we say is look around the room, name 5 things you see, 5 things you hear, 5 things you feel, 5 things you smell if you want, right? And then you do it 4 times, 4 things you see, hear, and feel. All right, 3, 2, 1. You get the idea. All right, and by the time you've done that, your nervous system will have settled a little bit. Another strategy, splash cold water over your face, okay? Or hold ice in your hands. What this does is it activates the diving reflex, which slows the heart, okay? And it can halt panic. All right. We're wanting to bring our system back online. Another strategy is push against the wall. What we're doing there is engaging the fight reflex, but we're releasing it in a healthy way. Okay. So your body wants to fight, push, head up and push as long as you can for as hard as you can. Okay. That'll help release some of that stress as well. Dig your heels in. Some people like to alternate digging their heels into the ground. That can sort of mimic the flight response, or just pushing both heels in and then release. Both heels in and then release. Okay. Other strategies. Humming, chanting, singing, slow, deep singing, right? Gargling. So what happens with this, as you hum, chant, slow, deep singing, right, or gargle, you're actually activating the vagus nerve. You're stimulating it, okay? Which is stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system to help calm the body. It also helps to release adrenaline and cortisol from the body. Another fantastic form is laughing, okay? That really takes us out of those difficult spots and those triggered responses into feeling better, okay? Dancing, right? And then, of course, shaking. And we're just going to do a little bit here. Haters gonna hate, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 break. And the fake is gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. So we want to shake it off. So what happens is that we get all that adrenaline in our body, and if we can just shake it all off, it helps to release it, okay? And helps release the cortisol. There's actually been a therapy made around this. It's called tension and stress release exercises, TRE, and it's really about shaking and getting rid of all that activation in the body, okay? So there is lots and lots of strategies here for you, okay? So now that we've done all those strategies for you, we're in a more regulated state. we're going to look at changing those thoughts. So from this state, we want to be able to identify the thought or the belief. We often call it a stuck point. We want to write this thought down or just have it in our head. And let's say, okay, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm supposed to be tough. So we kind of want to name it, right? What unhealthy thinking pattern or belief is this from? What kind of is this, right? So it's all or nothing. Is it catastrophizing? Is it overgeneralizing? Labeling, emotional reasoning, should or shoulding, jumping to conclusions, trust, safety, or control. So which one of these is it? Well, we're shoulding all over ourselves. So what's another way that we could say? What else could we say to ourselves, right? That would be more helpful. I'm learning why I feel this way and how to change it, right? It makes sense that I feel this way based on my background, but I don't have to continue this way and I can learn ways to change it. Okay. So we want to find more helpful ways of speaking. Another thought belief, they didn't say hi today, right? They must think I'm weak for taking stress leave. So right now we're mind reading. We're jumping to conclusions, right? We're assuming that that's what they're thinking. And we're making that thought truth and fact. Now remember, thoughts do not equal facts, okay? So we need to sort of think about, okay, well, guess what? They might have actually been in their own world, right? They might have been thinking about their own things. How many times have I not said hi to someone because I'm in my own world, right? So really important to really sort of counteract and to come up with more helpful ways of thinking. But at least we want you to catch those unhelpful thoughts to start with. So let's recap. First, it's acknowledging our unhelpful thinking or beliefs, right? Identify the type of unhelpful thinking trap. And then we want to engage in self-regulation strategies. And then we want to create alternative thoughts. So thank you for being a part of this and for listening. Wanted to also let you know that here at the center, we have a variety of programs, the Optimal Health Program, Brain Fog Program, Clinical Counseling, PTSD Program, and ADHD Program. And then you're welcome to contact us for more information about any of this stuff or any questions that have come up from this webinar. Thank you, and I really appreciate your willingness to listen. So thank you. I just need to figure out how to pause. Okay, bye everyone. Thanks.